On Freedom, it's our time. I'm Mikhail Baranov. Coming up, today's top stories for Friday. Last night, Russia launched 128 attack drones at Ukraine, 85 of which were Shaheds. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, Ukrainian air defense managed to neutralize 113 Russian drones. Hits were recorded at 6 locations, and debris fell at 7 more. The Odesa region was once again under a massive attack by the Russian army. The Russians targeted energy and port infrastructure with drones. This was reported by local authorities. More than 11,000 customers were left without electricity. Rescuers extinguished the fires that broke out. There were no casualties. 2 people were injured as a result of a morning strike by the Russian army on Konotop. This is in the Sumy region. Drones hit an administrative building in the city center. Another drone attacked a nearby apartment building. Fires broke out. The center of Konotop was left without gas supply. This was reported by city authorities. 3 private homes were also destroyed. Utility services are working to eliminate the consequences of this attack. Sloviansk in the Donetsk region also came under Russian fire. According to the city military administration, the Russian army struck the private sector with Garand drones. 3 women were wounded, 2 private homes were destroyed, and another 20 were damaged. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 163 combat clashes over the past day. The Russians were most active in storming the Pokrovsk direction. There, the defense forces repelled 33 attacks. Russian troops tried to break through Ukrainian defenses 28 more times in the Kostiantynivka direction and 18 times in the Huliaipol direction. And on the Alexandrovka section of the front, the invaders unsuccessfully attacked Ukrainian positions 8 times.
Right now, we're hearing reports about the enemy moving troops to the southern section of the front. So, obviously, they're getting ready to launch an offensive. Well, as I understand it, after Easter, when this truce is over, we have to expect that the enemy will try to start their offensive in the south. And we can see that the enemy isn't leaving Donbass alone. In other words, their objective is to capture all of Donbass, and that's the direction they're trying to move in, as shown by, like I said, the large number of clashes on the Pokrovsk section of the front.
The total combat losses of the Russian Federation's army since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine have already exceeded 1,308,500 soldiers. Of those, 1,130 occupiers were eliminated in the past day alone, according to the calculations of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In addition, the defense forces destroyed a tank, 5 armored combat vehicles, and nearly 50 Russian artillery systems, neutralized more than 2,000 drones, and turned 180 vehicles into scrap metal. Kyiv has already reached cooperation agreements with a number of Persian Gulf countries. Ukrainian companies will work with the militaries of Oman, Kuwait, and Bahrain. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy told reporters that in exchange for expert military assistance, Ukraine will receive air defense systems as well as oil and diesel.
We have an agreement to sign 10-year contracts with 3 countries. Ukrainian companies will cooperate with the armed forces of these countries to protect certain facilities. My job is to negotiate the volumes, the services, and the types of weaponry. Right now, such security talks are underway with Oman. We are also negotiating with Kuwait and Bahrain. This is in addition to the countries we have already reached agreements with, and everyone has seen this. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The resumption of shipping in the Strait of Hormuz was discussed over the phone by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Donald Trump. This was reported by the British government. Starmer told the head of the White House about his talks with the leaders of the Persian Gulf countries and military experts in the region regarding the unblocking of the Strait of Hormuz. Both sides agreed on the need to coordinate a practical plan to ensure the safe passage of ships.
The ceasefire must hold, and we hope that it will. We are assembling a coalition of 30 countries working on a political and diplomatic plan, and they have very strong views on the Strait of Hormuz, considering the military capabilities and the logistics of actually moving ships through the strait. With President Trump, we spent most of the time discussing the practical plan needed for navigation through the strait, as well as the role of the United Kingdom in this matter.
Allies on NATO's eastern flank and countries in the Persian Gulf are defending themselves against Russian and Iranian drones thanks to Ukrainian technology. This was stated by the Secretary General of the alliance, Mark Rutte. He also noted that more high-tech capabilities are needed.
We need more scalable, adaptive drone interception technology. And here, the hard-earned lessons Ukraine has learned on the battlefield are saving lives beyond its own borders. Right now, allies on NATO's eastern flank and our friends in the Persian Gulf are defending themselves against Russian and Iranian drones, thanks to Ukrainian technologies that didn't even exist a year ago.
The parliamentary election race in Hungary is entering the home stretch. This Sunday, April 12th, the people of the country will head to the polls. Notably, the elections are taking place amid mutual accusations of foreign interference. Who do the opponents call the main enemies of Hungarian democracy? And what is the current Prime Minister Viktor Orbán using to scare the nation in case he loses? Vitaly Sizov, special correspondent for Freedom TV channel in Europe, will tell us more from Budapest.
Even though Hungary is preparing to hold its most important elections in the past 16 years in just a few days, things remain remarkably calm on the streets of Budapest, and citizens with different political views hope that everything will go smoothly and without any major political upheaval.
I support Fidesz. I like how they defend our sovereignty. I am a supporter of traditional values. I have many children and grandchildren, so this topic is also important to me. I'm scared. I hope there will be no protests. This is a very important election. I will be voting for the first time, and I will probably vote for TISA. I can't predict the results, but hope there will be no protests or false flag operations.
Fidesz, the political force of the current Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and the opposing TIS, these are the two main parties in this election. The latest polls show that for the first time in 16 years, the opposition in Hungary could come to power and might even win 2/3 of the seats in parliament. This is very important because it would allow them to dismantle Viktor Orbán's legacy, in particular to change a number of fundamental laws and also to make changes in key positions, that is, to replace people who were appointed by Viktor Orbán's government. The elections are taking place amid mutual accusations of foreign interference. The entire campaign of the ruling party is built around opposing what they see as Ukrainian interference in the elections.
Our opponents will stop at nothing to seize power. They collude with foreign intelligence agencies, threaten our supporters with violence, and make fabricated accusations of election fraud even before the elections take place. They organize demonstrations and chaos even before your votes are counted. Let's be clear. This is an organized attempt to cast doubt on the decision of the Hungarian people through chaos, pressure, and international discrediting.
At the same time, Orbán himself is being accused of using help from the Kremlin. As Euronews reports, 5 senior members of the European Parliament responsible for monitoring the rule of law in Hungary called on the European Commission on Thursday to take concrete steps in response to what they describe as a serious threat to the integrity of the elections.
To justify their call for action, they emphasize the potential Russian interference operation in Hungary as covert support for the ruling Fidesz party's election campaign. They refer to investigative reports by various media outlets about this operation, which is being carried out on behalf of Russian military intelligence. From the Euronews article,
The motivation of voters here in Budapest is interesting. Those we managed to talk to were quite critical of the politicians they plan to vote for. But while some voters want to maintain stability, others believe the country needs serious change. Today in Budapest, there will be a multi-hour concert organized by opponents of the government. We will be keeping an eye on it and on other events happening here on the ground. Vitaly Sizov from Budapest for Freedom TV Channel.
Peace talks between Kyiv and Moscow are moving toward reaching an agreement, and resolving the war in Ukraine may not take much longer. This was stated by the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Kyrylo Budanov, in an interview with Bloomberg. In his opinion, Russia also wants to stop the war.
Everyone understands that the war needs to be ended. That's why they're negotiating. I don't think this will drag on for long. Both sides are still holding maximalist positions in the talks mediated by the U.S. But it's expected that they'll move closer together in search of a compromise. Russia has an incentive to make a deal because of the enormous costs of the war. Unlike us, they're spending their own money. These are huge amounts, already in the trillions. I don't know what a possible compromise on the territorial issue, the most difficult part of the negotiations, will look like. A final decision hasn't been made yet, but in principle, everyone now clearly understands the limits of what's acceptable, and that's a huge step forward. Kyrylo Budanov, head of the office of the president of Ukraine, in an interview with Bloomberg.
At the same time, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy believes that Putin's unwillingness to meet at the leadership level shows that the Russian dictator does not want peace. This is also evidenced by the fact that Moscow is against the deployment of foreign troops along the line of contact.
I communicated to our American partners that they can determine for themselves whether Putin wants peace by analyzing the specific answers to these types of questions. First, try to arrange a meeting at the highest levels of leadership to discuss the issue of territories. Putin refused. Second, if he doesn't want to continue the aggression after a ceasefire, suggest deploying American and European troops along the line of contact. Putin's answer was, no foreign troops. Why? That can only mean he wants to keep moving forward. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine, on Telegram.
President Volodymyr Zelenskyy allows for the possibility of a new trilateral negotiation format involving Ukraine, the US, and Russia if Moscow chooses the path of de-escalation. He emphasized that such a meeting could be scheduled as early as this spring or summer. According to the president, the period until September will be difficult for Ukraine, as it will involve diplomatic, political, and also military pressure. An Easter truce between Ukraine and Russia is possible, but there's little trust in the Kremlin's promises. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha reported this on social network X. He expressed hope that a prolonged ceasefire would open the way to peace.
Our firm position is that there is absolutely no necessity to resume strikes. A lasting truce will create a sustainable pathway for genuine diplomacy that will end this war, a war that Russia will never win and must finally bring to an end. We believe that a ceasefire is the most effective and appropriate strategy to advance diplomatic efforts, whether in the broader Middle East region or in the specific context of Russian aggression against Ukraine. Andriy Sybiha, Ukraine's deputy foreign minister, on social network X,